It really began in 1970. Barbara and I were graduate students at Bowling Green University in Ohio. And my professor, who would be my dissertation uh, professor, he was taking a group of people to England, group of students, and he needed help, he needed assistance, and he needed to have a female and a male. So he said, how about if you do it? So he did. And in the process, we were living in the Lake District and literally living in Wordsworth's house. And could do that then. Now it's a museum. But we discovered the absolute beauty of the Lake District, and it was like all things English, outdoors English. And at the time, we talked about that and said, this would be wonderful to take students here. And then Barbara, who was much more of a realist, said, that's never going to happen. you know. And then so fast forward to 1997, and John Toll was president, and Joachim Schultz was the dean, and I was the chairman of English and also humanities at that time. And Joachim called me and he said, if you can, come on over to the office. There's the chairman of the board of governors is here. Turns out it was Jay Griswold. And he's all excited about this place in England. And then in a very, Voto Sace, he said, you don't have to do this. And I said, let me find out what it is. So Jay was all enthusiastic about this place called Kiplin Hall that he had come to see the previous summer. He was in England going to a wedding of a friend fairly close by. And this friend said, hey, there's a place that has connections with Maryland. And that was Kiplin Hall. So he looked into it and found out that the University of Maryland had a lease on what was a coach house and a paddock, and they had transferred that into a very crude living quarters. And they were looking for people from Maryland, particularly, to use the facility. So they presented it to me, and first thing I said was, okay, we'll be on right now. And Jay said afterwards, he said he couldn't believe what was happening. He said most academic things move at a glacial pace. But I told Barbara, and she was on it. And she was teaching at the college at the time, so she talked to her students, and I talked to mine, and we sent out emails. And our plan was to get 10 people. We got 12. And the first year we went, we decided we had to be as economical as possible. So Barbara drove one van and I drove another. And we made all our meals to save on money. And we were really working very close to the bone. And in retrospect, I think of it now, I was younger then, but I couldn't do what we did then. We went out hiking every day in all kinds of weather with the intention to show the relationship between poetry that was written in or about a particular area. We would go to those places, and then the students would have their own experience, and we were hiking. So, and the idea was to create a kind of tension between what, let's say, Wordsworth or Coleridge wrote and what their own experience was. And from the get-go, it really was hugely gratifying. And students that were not even English majors, business majors or chemistry majors, they were talking about how they enjoyed poetry. And now, after I got off the ground, I said, good, I'm glad. So it started that way. And we in the first year, we had a kind of a wild group. They were children of their time. They would do things like every morning when Barbara would come in to get breakfast going, they would leave different vegetable arrangements, phallic arrangements, and other kinds of things. But it turned out to be a good relationship. In the first couple of days, it was Dr. Gillin this, Dr. Gillin that, and then by about the fourth day, it was, hey, you, give me that. And so the informality and the give and take was from the beginning exciting. And then really from that point forward, it just kept evolving. And as time went on, we refined things, or Barbara did. She was really the brains in the outfit, as far as organizing everything. I mean, including we were in charge of getting tickets for airlines, trains, all of that. The college. I don't mean this as a criticism, but the college stayed out of it, which was good for us. We could do what we wanted, as long as we could pay for it, and so we kept it under the budget all the time. It was good. It was really, as I said many times, it was the best classroom in the world for romantic poetry. I mean, here we are, and literally in the places that, I mean, Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats, Byron. Well, not so much Byron, but Coleridge. They were all involved in the area in one way or another. So that part was a no-brainer. 10 years, almost 10 years, I think, we just stayed in England. And then when Courtney met Frank, after spending a year in Ireland, and he emigrated to the States, we talked about expanding it to Ireland, which we did. He had his family find us places to live that would be cheap, and he did, in a place called Glengarriff, which is it's on the edge of Bantry Bay in the very southern part of Ireland. So what we did was to do the same thing in Ireland that we were doing in England, except that as we hiked out into the various landscapes, we were using Irish poetry as the connection. Yeah. The title of the book is A Guide to Hiking the Liberal Arts, and the subtitle is Washington College Kiplin Hall Program. The book evolved out of our experiences there, and also I'm hoping people understand that it's a kind of explanation of what the liberal arts are, and how learning history, philosophy, literature, art, and so forth, how important that is and how different it is. It's not a matter of collecting a number of numbers or gathering simple facts. That it demands experience and time and contemplation. And my contention in the trip that we put together was that this provided students with those kinds of experiences that could be contemplated. And part of it was that we were pushing the students beyond what they were familiar with physically and emotionally in many cases. I mean, England is a challenge in the best of times, and in terms of weather. So we would go hiking every day, and sometimes it would be, slamming down rain, and we'd go right along and would stop for lunch, and our peanut butter and jelly sandwiches would turn to liquid, things like that. So it was kind of like a boot camp of sorts. And the underlying premise was that things that you think you can't do, you really can, and you have to kind of find that reserve within yourself to do that. And in the book, in one chapter, I talk about a girl who was, I shouldn't say girl, I should say young woman. I've been corrected about that. About how she was overweight and having difficulty. And in the course of the hike, as we were coming down from one of the higher peaks, it started to hail really, really hard. And it was hail and rain and blowing wind. And everyone was fairly miserable because we had an agreement that we would all stay together. And so the person who was slowest was not going to be left way behind. I think psychologically it's pretty damaging. But we got to the point where everybody was shivering. And I told most of the group, I said, you go down and wait at the bottom of the hill. There's a pub there. Of course, that was, that was ignition number one. So they were gone. But this girl had profound difficulty. She couldn't walk. And at one point she sat down in the running water and the hail. And I explained to her, I said, there's no way out of here. You can't call in a helicopter. The weather is too foul. And if you don't get up and move, you're going to die here. You don't want to get exposed. And she had a very hard time, but she did it. And after excruciating several hours, we got her down. And at the end of this, I, I was amazed. I really admired her courage. I mean, I was annoyed at her, quite honestly, because I was freezing. I mean, I was shaking, freezing. On the other hand, here was this young person who really went way beyond her capacities. And in subsequent times, later on campus, she said to me that experience was a profound one for me, and I think it will be with me forever. In fact, that was at that stage when the publisher wanted to know, okay, um, what category do we put this in? And I said, God knows, it covers a lot of things. It's about academics, but it's not an academic book. It's about traveling, but it's not a travel book. It's about people who love literature, but it's not merely a memoir. It's kind of all of those brought together. And the underlying thread is that experiencing literature, especially, is fundamental to our being human. And again, the examples I give in the book, I hope illustrate that.